Here we go. Here we go. WinterLight, where silence says it all. All right, it looks really pretty. It kind of looks like a painting. The music's nice and soft. Nice walk on the beach. It's got like the illusion of the water moving. I like that. So, never played the game before, so we're gonna new game. The sky was covered with gray clouds when Elias got off the bus. The salty air hit him full on, like a slap made of memories. He stepped off the last step of the vehicle with measured slowness, as if putting his foot on the ground sealed something important. The rusty sign saying, "Welcome to Bahai Mansa," sorry for mispronouncing that, greeted him in silence, tilted by the wind that pushed it slightly to the side. Baya Mansa, he thought. Even the name seemed older now, as if it hadn't been spoken aloud in decades. The salty breeze from the sea ruffled his hair with a familiar gesture. The distant sound of waves crashing against rocks reached his ears like a faint, almost shy promise. He held his backpack in one hand and a frayed scarf in the other. The scarf had been a gift, a simple one, forgotten, but now it returned like an emotional tie that clung tighter than it protected from the cold. Nothing changed, or maybe I did. The thought had no tone, no judgment. It was a simple observation. He walked slowly along Los Pinos Street, lined with tall pines that hadn't lost an ounce of solemnity. Feel like it's loud. The rusty fences of the houses seemed to lean slightly, as if they recognized him and chose to stay silent. The houses looked smaller than in his memories. Some had been repainted, others remade the same, frozen in time. On the corner, an old bicycle was propped against a peeling wall. The torn seat exposed yellow foam like an open wound. A dog slept on the doormat, indifferent to the passing of time. It twitched an ear in sync with its dreams. That house, Marcos used to live there. Did he leave too? A breath of sea air filled his lungs. He coughed lightly. The silence was thick, heavy with things unsaid. A figure was crossing the sidewalk ahead, wearing a blue hood and carrying a box in their arms. The figure's steps were steady but unhurried. They didn't seem to notice Elias's presence. Elias stopped. The wind slipped in through his jacket collar. There was something in the way they walked, in the profile of their face, that felt vaguely familiar. It wasn't just the shape, it was the energy, an old air. But the figure kept walking without turning. Do I know her? The thought made his temples throb with sudden force, a sharp pain without a clear cause. So we can either keep walking or call out to greet. I'm gonna call out to greet. Hey, excuse me. The figure stopped, turned their head slightly, but didn't recognize him right away. Elias felt his voice tremble, as if unsure whether he was greeting someone real or a ghost. The figure seemed to hesitate, but didn't reply. Just then, a car passed, raising a gust of wind and dry leaves that hit his face. When he looked again, she was gone. Elias lowered his gaze, feeling the echo of something he couldn't name, like a bell ringing in another room. When he reached number 215, he stopped in front of a rusted gate. Hi. The rust stains looked like maps of places that no longer existed. I don't think so, no. Hello. His childhood home looked at him with closed eyes, as if asleep, waiting for someone to wake it. Heck yeah! That's awesome. Congratulations. What did you go to college for? Dusty windows, worn paint, but still standing. And that was something. Rama Clara had lived there alone for years. I'm back. Nice, nice. He approached the iron gate and knocked with his knuckles. The sound got lost for a moment inside the house, as if unsure whether to make its way through. It took a few seconds, but a firm voice came from inside. I'm coming, I'm coming. Don't rush an old lady with a cane. The door opened with a long creak, like a rusty laugh. Huh, family ties, we got a trophy. Clara stood there, with her knitted sweater and wooden cane, like a breathing sculpture from the past. Her hair was tied in a messy bun, and a pair of glasses hung from her neck on a woolen cord. So you came back, Ellis. Hi, Grandma. Clara looked at him for a few seconds before smiling. A smile that promised nothing, but demanded nothing either. You haven't changed as much as you think. She hugged him tightly, with the warmth only grandmothers have. That kind of hug that reminds the body what home means. I missed you. No need to lie, but thanks anyway. They laughed, breaking the ice gently. They entered the house, which smelled of hot soup and old wood. The hallway was the same, with old photos hanging on the wall. The framed gazes seemed to follow him as he passed. One showed Ellis with his mother at the beach. Ellis as a child, feet in the water, hands full of sand. That photo. I don't remember you had it hanging there. Or I didn't remember you had it hanging there. I don't have much prettier to show, you know? They sat in the kitchen, where two mugs waited on the table. The tablecloth had a few stains impossible to hide, but that didn't take away from the gesture. Clara poured tea from a blue teapot with faded flowers. The steam rose between them like an invisible bridge. I guess you know why you're here. Yeah. Clara stood with effort and opened a drawer in the sideboard. She took out a light wooden box and placed it on the table gently, as if still afraid to break it. Your mother asked me to give this to you if you came back. On the box was a sealed letter, with his name handwritten on it. The yellowed paper had a rough texture, as if it had observed too many nights. Ellis didn't touch it. He just looked at it, the way one looks at a closed wound, knowing it still hurts. Okay, so did his mom die? When did she give it to you? A few days before, well, before everything. I'm guessing so. I don't know if I want to open it. You don't have to do it now. Not even this week if you don't want to. Ellis turned his gaze to the window, where steady drizzle fell. The drops gathered on the edges of the glass like persistent thoughts. What would she write? An apology? A hidden truth? Want some soup? please. Clara served the soup in deep plates with uneven edges. The scene smelled of vegetables, garlic, and something he couldn't identify, but smelled like childhood. It's been a long time since I had something this homemade. Something has to keep you standing. You won't live on memories. They ate in silence for several minutes. The only sound was the soft clinking of the spoon against the plate. The old radio whispered a soft instrumental tune, as if it knew the moment's exact tone. After dinner, Clara pointed at the stairs with her chin. Your room's the same. I just dusted it a little. That's fine, thanks. He climbed the wooden steps, which creaked as if they recognized him. Each step was an unspoken word, a note of a forgotten song. He opened the door and found his old room. The blue curtains, the empty shelf, the old posters still stuck on the wall. A deflated ball lay in the corner. He didn't remember leaving it there. He sat on the bed without taking off his shoes. The letter was still in his backpack, untouched. What if I don't want to know what it says? He lay back and closed his eyes. The sound of the sea came muffled through the glass, like a distant rumor. He thought of his mother, the last time they spoke, what they left unsaid, what they didn't forgive. Why now, after everything? Outside, the wind moved the branches with a constant whisper, as if the world were saying his name without daring to raise it. Claire climbed to his room slowly. If you need anything, I'm in my room. Thanks, Grandma. You could visit Cafe Horizonte tomorrow. It opened recently. A new cafe in town? Incredible. And they say the barista is a charmer, but don't get distracted. I'll do my best. Claire smiled and closed the door gently. The click of the handle was a final sigh. Ellis was left alone, accompanied by his thoughts. Maybe this is just what I needed. The rain grew heavier as night fell over Bahia Mansa, room filled with soft shadows cast by the street lamp. Ellis took a deep breath, as if trying to absorb the calm of the place. I'm back. And everything's going to change, right? He closed his eyes, embraced by the invisible weight of the past. Thus ended the first day in Bahia Mansa. End of day one. So day one was a little heavy. It sounds like something tragic happened and that their past was not great, and he's returned home to face all that was heavy in his past. And now he's got this letter from his mother, and he doesn't know if he wants to read it or not, which honestly, sometimes that's kind of difficult to want to do. All right, day two, Cafe Horizonte. The sun filtered timidly through the blue curtains of the room. Behind them, a pale sky promised a cool and serene day. Ella stretched slowly, with the sensation of having floated for hours through layers of blurry dreams. The scent of old wood, soaked into the walls and clothes, felt both familiar and distant. He sat on the bed, and the creak of the mattress was like a sigh from the past. He'd stayed still for a few seconds, eyes fixed on the backpack. The letter was still inside, sealed like an oath, like a sweet threat he still didn't dare to face. Not today, not yet. He ran a hand over his face, as if trying to erase the questions the letter hinted at without words. He got up and stretched his arms. The wooden floor was cold under his feet. He went down the stairs slowly, each step accompanied by the scent of toast and freshly brewed coffee. Good morning, sleepyhead. Sleepyhead, it's 8 o'clock. Vaya Manso wakes early, dear, and toast doesn't wait. Clara served cafe a latte, a light, in two striped mugs, one of them with a small chip on the rim Ellis remembered breaking as a child. The tablecloth was vinyl, with fruit patterns faded by years and the sun that came in every morning through the window. An instrumental version of an old tango played softly on the radio. Did you dream anything? I don't remember, but it was peaceful. That's saying a lot already. They sat down to eat breakfast. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was full of shared knowledge, of words that weren't needed. Ellis watched the golden light bathe the table, spilling over the mug like a promise. Claire spread butter on the toast, on toast with slow, precise, almost ritual movements. You could go for a walk, see if the town recognizes you. Is the fair still on Saturdays? Thursdays now. The new mayor's doing. Incredible. I don't know if he governs or improvises, but there he goes, with his poncho and his broom. Ellis chuckled softly, grateful for that dose of morning sarcasm. He finished his coffee and put on his coat slowly, as if stepping not just into the street, but into another chapter. The air was fresh, smelling of salt, fresh bread, and damp earth. The clouds drifted lazily, casting soft shadows along the waterfront. He walked down the seaside path, giving small nods to vaguely familiar faces. A man in a beret looked at him with doubt, as if his face was an echo. I think that was the grocer. Reuben? The bakery, Delicious Del Sur, was still in its place, with its red and white striped awning fluttering in the wind. The aroma from inside was intoxicating. Flour, yeast, quince jam. A little further ahead, a new sign caught his attention. Cafe Horizonte, with letters on navy blue, freshly painted, gleaming in the sun like a promise of novelty. The storefront had pots of fresh lavender and a small light wood bench beside the entrance. Just then, a familiar figure crossed the street in front of him. It was a woman in a knitted scarf, walking with purpose, carrying a bag of books on her arm. Ellis recognized her, or thought he did. Mara. At least, she looked like Mara. The way she tied her hair, the rhythm of her stride, everything spoke of a memory that still hurt, but sweetly. He hesitated for a few seconds. The cafe was there, waiting for him with its scent of cinnamon and refuge. But so was she, and the chance that it was her was a thorn in his heart. So we can go directly into the cafe or follow the one who looks like Mara. Well, I want to know who Mara is, so we're following Mara. Ellis crossed the street quickly, dodging puddles of doubt. He walked behind her for half a block, feeling the weight of every step like walking on glass. When the figure stopped in front of a window, Ellis read the sign, Tinta Libre. The window was filled with handmade books, brushes, hand-bound notebooks, and small paper sculptures. He didn't dare go in. He stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, heart in his throat. Mara, or whoever it was, set down the bag and tied her hair in a messy bun, without looking toward the street. She didn't see him, but still Ellis raised the hand in a timid, almost involuntary gesture. Then he sighed, turned around, and walked back to the waterfront. The Cafe Horizonte sign was still there, steady, as if it knew he'd come back. He puts the door open, a bit flustered but curious. The place smelled of espresso, wood, and something sweet he couldn't quite place. Square tables of light oak, cushioned chairs, filament lamps, and a shelf full of mismatched mugs completed the scene. Stronger, no more. Another, or stranger, no more. We got another trophy. Ivan says, "Good morning, sit wherever you like." A young man behind the counter looked up and smiled with his eyes. He had dark hair tied back in a messy ponytail and wore a black apron stained with flour and chalk. His movements were quick but gentle, as if he knew time in the cafe followed a different logic. Thanks. He sat near the window, where the sun entered gently like a welcomed guest. Guest. He watched the dust motes float in the light like drifting thoughts. First time here? Yeah, I just moved back to town after several years. Then a double welcome. You like your coffee strong or gentle? Something that wakes me up, but doesn't insult me. Perfect. One right in the middle then. Ivan smiled knowingly and disappeared behind the machine, which began to hiss and sputter. Ellis rested his elbows on the table, looking out the window. The street looked like a frozen postcard. An elderly couple walked by holding hands. A dog yawned in the sun. This is too peaceful, but I needed it. The thought settled on him like a light blanket. Here you go, a gentle awakening, as I like to call it. Thanks. So, what brings you to Bahia Mansa? Vacation? Reunions? I came back to live with my grandma. I'm sorting things out. Sometimes going back is the only way to move forward. It's not wrong. Ellis looked at him a second longer than needed. He nodded in silence and tasted the coffee. It was right on the edge between comforting and sharp. It's really good. I get that a lot, but I'm still glad to hear it. For a few minutes, they stayed in silence, sharing the cafe's calm. A couple of customers came in, greeted with gestures, and sat without ordering. The town's routines were in motion. Ivan served them with a natural smile. He seemed to know not just their orders, but their stories too. Ellis watched, curious, the way Ivan moved, as if he'd always belonged there. This guy fit into town better than I ever did as a kid. He finished his coffee slowly, savoring every sip as if it were a step towards something uncertain. How much is it? On the house. For your first day. You don't have to. Not up for debate. Tomorrow, if you come back, I'll charge you double. Deal. He left Cafe Horizonte with a faint smile that didn't show, but could be felt. The wind tousled his hair as he walked toward the plaza. The benches were empty except for a pair of sparrows. Only one boy played with a ball near a kiosk, laughing with a freedom Ellis had forgotten. He sat under an oak tree and closed his eyes, letting the breeze brush his face. I still don't know why I came back, beyond the obvious. But something tells me this won't be as simple as signing a few papers. He remained quiet for a while, letting time do its thing. Signing a few papers. So maybe his mom is sick and like in the hospital, and the papers that he has to sign is kind of like a life or death situation, like pulling the plug. And maybe the letter is from right before whatever happened. When he returned home, Clara was in the garden, carefully trimming dry leaves. The sun filtered through the branches of a fruitless peach tree. Did you go to the cafe? Yeah, they gave me a really good one. That new boy's got magic hands. A pretty face, if you ask me. Grandma. What? Can't an old lady look? They went inside the house together as the afternoon fell. The golden light passed through the windows lazily, spreading over the floor like a farewell blanket. Ellis went up to his room, taking off his shoes and coat with slow movements. He opened his laptop out of habit, but didn't type anything. He just stared at the blank screen for minutes, as if waiting for the words to appear on their own. I don't feel like working or thinking. He closed the laptop and pulled out the wooden box. The letter was still there, untouched, heavy like an emotional stone. What if I'm not ready? He put it back and lay down on the bed. A gust of wind made the window creak. The curtains swayed like gentle ghosts. From the kitchen came the scent of toast and something baking. The day had been calm, but full of things he hadn't quite processed. Tomorrow, maybe I'll see someone else. Tomorrow, maybe I'll open it. Outside, night settled silently over Baya Mansa. End of day 2. Okay, so obviously something happened, and he is grieving. And opening this letter is final, I want to say. Like, if there was an argument and things in the past were bad, and this was like a last minute heart to heart type thing, and that person is no longer here, the weight of whatever the problem was in the past is in that letter, and the way that that person felt was in that letter, and knowing that all of that happened and you can't make amends with that person because that person is now gone adds a whole other layer to it. So I feel like our character here is going through it. And they tried, they stepped out, they went to the cafe, they met someone, and I don't know, let's see what day 3 has. Okay, so day 3, what was left unsaid? The sky was covered with pale clouds, as if the day hesitated to begin. The clouds formed a motionless, light gray sheet that filtered the light like frosted glass. It was the kind of morning where everything feels like it's in slow motion. So the feelings of everything is now setting in. Ellis woke up with a slight pressure on his chest, a vague tightness that didn't quite hurt but couldn't be ignored. The room smelled of wood and old dust. He didn't know if it was the weather or the memories. I should do something today. Move, stop overthinking. He went down to the kitchen, where Grandma was reading the newspaper next to a cup of mate coquito, latte coquito. The air was warm, smelling of freshly baked bread and damp yerba mate. Sorry if I'm pronouncing these things incorrectly. You slept like a rock. Did you dream? I don't remember. Good. Sometimes dreams stir up more than they help. You know, the grandma has asked every morning so far, and I know we're only on day 3, but she's asked about dreams. I want to know why. Clara flipped through the newspaper unhurriedly, turning each page as if reading between the lines. A rebellious lock of her hair stuck out. She hadn't bothered to fix it. They ate breakfast in silence, with the clock marking the slow rhythm of the house. The ticking sounded louder in the spaces without words. Ellis put it on his coat. The fabric still smelled of storage, as if it didn't quite belong to him yet. He went out walking without a destination. The streets were quiet, smelling of damp earth. The tree branches dripped silently, pearls of rain from the night before sliding off them. He passed the old municipal library, now closed for renovations. The facade was covered by rusty scaffolding and a tarp fluttering like a flag without a country. Around the corner, something stopped him in his tracks. A familiar voice, a tone impossible to forget. Even more than a perfume or a song. Woven words. We got another trophy. Oh, this is Mara. Well, well, look who decided to show up in Bahia Mansa. Mara stood in front of him. Nope. Mara stood in front of a bookstore with a blue facade, its sign slightly chipped. Her hair was curly and short, and she wore a knitted scarf that hung like a lazy snake. She held a notebook and a disposable coffee cup with marker doodles. Hi, Mara. Thought you decided to disappear for good. I almost did. You were close then. The tone was sarcastic, but there was no venom in her eyes. Just a kind of weariness, like someone repeating a line rehearsed too many times. I came for my mom. I know. The whole town does. I figured. So now I'm wondering if maybe this person did something and whatever happened caused them to leave. And in that time, things got worse. And obviously, some people like Mara here doesn't seem to agree with the fact that they left. Amara says, and we also know you didn't write her a single letter these past years. Oh, dang. Okay, so when you have a rocky relationship with someone, it's difficult to want to reach out to them. And much like he's saying now, I didn't come to justify myself. Your reasons are your own reasons, and no one around you can change those reasons. And if you get into an altercation with someone else, whether that's physical or verbal, you're going to feel things the way that you feel them. And you can still love them, but want all of the space between you. And sometimes that space is what's needed. So, as hurtful as it is on one side to be the person that doesn't get the call, doesn't get the text, doesn't get the letter, the other party needs that time to adjust, to heal, to regain themselves because you lose yourself in a lot of chaos. And I feel like there was some sort of issue between him and his mom. And when he left, he needed space from that. And obviously, the people in the town are going to see how that affected the mother. And they weren't by Ellis, so they didn't know what what he was going through. And then obviously something tragic happened, and at that point you can't fix it. So you have all the reasons that you left, and the fact that you left, and then the fact that you didn't say anything to that person, and then they wrote you a letter, and then they are no more, and you can't fix it. You can't. When you distance yourself and it's not permanent, there's still a chance that you can fix it. But once it becomes permanent, that chance goes away. And that in itself hits different. All right, so he said, I didn't come to justify myself. Good thing. A silence settled between them, uncomfortable but necessary. They both knew words were only the surface. You're still here? As you can see, some never left, others couldn't. I thought you'd gone off to study. I did. Then I came back. Like life stuff, not Instagram material. Ellis didn't know what to say. The Mara in front of him wasn't quite the same. She had a new scar near her eyebrow and a familiar posture, like she no longer waited for apologies from the world. But her eyes were identical to those late adolescent afternoons. They shone with that blend of defiance, sorrow, and the urge to show neither. Want to come in? This is my bookstore workshop. It's called Tinta Libre. So we can accept the invitation and go in with her, or we can gently decline and keep walking. Well, I want to know what's going on in the store, so we're gonna do that. Also, hello, welcome to the live. Sure, I'm curious. Me too. Laura gave a faint smile, surprised, and pushed the door open with her shoulder. A little bell rang, a bell with more history than shine. The place smelled of new paper, coffee, and a hint of lavender. The walls were lined with wooden shelves, some filled with books, others with handmade notebooks, hand painted bookmarks, and jars of brushes. A hanging lamp cast shadows over an old cabinet full of sewing kits, and ribbons. I do bookbinding now. Workshops on Tuesdays and Fridays. I also sell coffee, but don't tell City Hall. You always were good with your hands. Was that a compliment or a suggestion? Whatever you want it to be. Hmm, that also sounds like you. They sat at a low table by the window. Drops began to form on the glass. A soft playlist drifted from an old speaker. I didn't think you'd come back. In fact, I swore you wouldn't. Me too. Does the house still smell like soup? Clara hasn't changed a thing. Glad at least she's doing okay. Ella noticed Mara avoided mentioning his mother. He wasn't brave enough to say her name either. Do you remember our walks to the Silence Lighthouse? Of course. You always got scared when it got dark. It wasn't fear, it was respect for ghosts. Well, they're all still here, you know. I can tell. Mara crossed her arms and looked at him with a mix of challenge and tenderness. She had a way of looking at him that stripped away his defenses layer by layer. Don't expect everything to go back to how it was. I don't. Good. They stayed silent, watching two kids ride bikes down the street. One of them shouted something unintelligible, laughing. It was a sound so honest it hurt. Ellis felt like there was a thousand things he wanted to say, but none came out right. Everything seemed to arrive too late. I'm sorry. Don't say that if you don't know why you're saying it. Then thank you. For what? For not kicking me out of here. I thought about it. They both laughed, though a shadow lingered in their smiles. Outside, the sky was still gray, but no longer as oppressive. I've got class in 15 minutes. 9-year-olds. I'm teaching them to sew their own journals. Sounds nice. It is sometimes. Other times they want to use glue as perfume. I'll remember that next time I think my job is hard. Come by another day if you want. I don't promise good vibes, but there's ginger tea. You sold me. Bye, Ellis. Bye, Mara. He left Tinta Libre with a knot in his chest and cold hands. The chime of the door still echoed in his head like a trace of what might have been. Ellis walked aimlessly for several minutes without checking the time. Rain began to threaten with a soft drizzle. Each step took him farther from her, and also closer again. Everything in Bahia Mansa seemed to move in circles. It wasn't a coincidence. She was waiting for me, somehow. As he walked along the wet sidewalk, a cold gust brought back a memory. The last time he spoke to his mother. The argument, the words he never wanted to remember, but that still lived on, crouched. So you're leaving without saying anything more than it's for the best? Is that all I deserve? You can't pretend everything's fine, Mom. It's not. Of course it's not. But you don't fix anything by running away. I'm not running. I'm choosing my life. Your life? And what am I then? An obstacle? No, just I couldn't breathe here anymore. Well, that's heavy. I know what that's like. And you think I could? I raised you alone, with everything against me. This isn't a competition, Mom. It never was. But you left anyway, and you didn't look back. Ellis remembered that he hadn't answered. He just grabbed his backpack and walked out the door. Sometimes silence cuts too. When he got home, Clara was waiting on the porch, knitting, with the expression of someone who already knows the answer. I saw you from the window. Did you run into someone? Yeah. Mara? Yeah. And how did it go? She invited me into her bookstore. Didn't spit on me, so I guess good. That's excellent. For both of you, really. They went inside together as night began to fall. The sky had turned ash gray. The house smelled of stew. Ellis went up to his room with his mind elsewhere, body present but heart lingering in a shop window of books and coffee mugs. He sat by the window and looked toward the plaza. The lamppost flickered from the humidity. The letter was still sealed. Today it didn't matter. The past had other ways of reaching him. Tomorrow, I have to see her again. Not just for the past, for what might still happen. He lay down without turning on the lamp. The mattress creaked, as if judging him too. The murmur of the wind seemed to echo in his mind. You came back just in time. End of day 3. So obviously, a lot of stuff happens. And it didn't just affect one person, it affected multiple people. And when you walk away from something like that and you come back, you're not just facing the coming back, you're facing everyone who's still there. And that can make it hard because a lot of people are waiting for answers that maybe you don't want to or are not ready to give. Day 4, what we didn't say. The rain had been hitting the roof with a steady rhythm since before dawn. Ellis opened his eyes slowly, feeling the weight of the humidity in his bones. He was in no hurry to get up. Today the town sleeps, and maybe I could too. He remained lying down, listening to the murmur of water against the windows. For the first time in a long while, he didn't think about deadlines or deliverables. He thought about a laugh, Mara's laugh, when they'd throw themselves onto the grass after a storm. He closed his eyes and remembered. They were 15, running through the rain along the promenade. Mara wore a borrowed t-shirt and eyes full of fire. Come on, coward, it's not acid. You soaked my whole jacket because you pushed me into the mud. They laughed like the world didn't exist beyond that moment. They threw themselves onto the soaked grass, panting. I'm gonna get killed if I get sick. You won't get sick. You're too stubborn for that. I'm going to miss you when you leave. What if I don't leave? Would you stay? I don't know. Depends if someone gives me a reason. They looked at each other in silence. They didn't kiss, but they thought about it. He came back to present, like being yanked from a warm dream. Ellis sat on the bed, eyes fixed on the backpack. He pulled out the wooden box with trembling hands. The letter was still intact, the white seal unbroken. I could open it now. He held it between his fingers. The paper was thicker than he remembered. What if everything I used to hate her breaks when I read this? That that is heavy. That is really heavy. A lot of stuff happens and you feel your big emotions about it. And you want to continue hating that person, but then that person does something or says something and it changes everything. He stood up and put it away again. He went down to the kitchen where Clara was watering plants in correct pots. It's raining hard today. Yeah. Did you dream of your mother? No, but I dreamed of someone else. Laura? Yeah. You're both fools. Fools? You had each other and didn't know it. Or didn't dare to say it. Sometimes I think we did know. Then you were late. But it's not always too late. Ellis took a cup of coffee and leaned on the table. Do you think she hates me? No, but she protected herself from doing so. The clock read 11. The rain didn't let up. I'm not going out today. I figured. I left the blanket on the couch. He spent the morning reading an old hardcover book. He didn't care about the story. He just needed to escape his own. Every now and then he checked his phone. No messages. Barr was never one to write. She always showed up in person. But this time, something different happened. On the screen, a simple notification. One new message. Perfect day to do nothing. Rainy coffee, if you want. It was Ivan. Ellis held the phone for several seconds. He didn't open the message. There was no obligation to reply, but no clear reason to ignore it either. He closed his eyes, the phone still in hand. Reply to Ivan and start a casual chat, or ignore the message and keep thinking about Mara. I don't see why we couldn't reply to Ivan, so let's do that. Ellis slowly slid his finger across the screen and typed, "If you can send coffee telepathically, maybe I'll get off the couch." Less than 2 minutes passed before a reply came in. "It's strong, but polite, just like you asked. I owe you." Ellis was surprised to find himself smiling. The rain kept falling, but something had shifted. Over the next few minutes, they exchanged messages about rainy movies, ridiculous coffee, and sad songs with weather names. Ivan had a gift for talking without pressure, without urgency. And Ellis, who hadn't planned on speaking to anyone, now held his phone like a gentle lifeline. Yeah, hi, Ollie. They didn't need to meet up. Just being there was enough. He hadn't thought digital words could calm so much noise. He let the sounds of the rain fill the silence. At some point, he fell asleep, dreamed of his mother, a gray day, and a cup of tea. She read him a story in a low voice. And the fox looked at the little prince and said, "What is essential is invisible to the eye." Child. Why is the fox sad? Because he learned to care. He didn't understand then. Now he did. When he woke up, Ellis didn't go downstairs right away. Instead, he opened the attic door, looking for an old blanket. The air smelled of dust, damp wood, something kept too long. In a corner, he spotted a box with his name written in faded marker. He crouched, opened it. Inside were school drawings, a movie ticket, an unsent letter, and a blurry photo. In the image, he was about 5. His mother held him by the waist, laughing. On the back, it smudged in smudged ink a phrase: "Watching you grow was my daily miracle." Ellis froze. The photo trembled in his fingers, though there was no wind. "Why didn't you say this out loud?" He slipped the photo into his pocket. He didn't cry, but something softened inside. He closed the box carefully, as if it were fragile, and went downstairs in silence. Before reaching the kitchen, something made him stop. The bookshelf, another attic, made of paper. Tiny.
Grab you.
Blah, blah.
It's sponsored by Buy the Modern Dragon Fruit.
Yay.
That's what it's sponsored by. I walked the last 3 scenes if they have.
Thank you.
If you see sweet. Talk about teenage because he caused them.
He ran a finger along a dusty spines, reading familiar titles like old friends' names. Thank you. Oops. They didn't have popcorn? Oh, they did. Not? Not. They did. Wow, this is a lot. Thank you.
The bag for the drinks listed.
Oh no. He pulled out a book at random. There was a dried flower between the pages. On the first page, a dedication in his mother's handwriting. For when you wander, nope, for when you wonder where you came from or who you took after. It was a book of Russian tales, one Clara used to read to him when he was sick. He flipped through it slowly, not looking for anything specific, just letting something find him. On a marked page, a phrase underlined in pencil. The heart remembers what the mind fears to forget. He closed the book, went to the kitchen. Clara had already made soup. Eat something, you've got a long face. I'm not hungry. You're a terrible liar. He served himself a bit, just to avoid an argument. The soup tasted like childhood, and things he didn't know how to name. What was she like when I wasn't here? Lonelier, more closed off, but she never stopped talking about you. I didn't know that. It's not too late to learn other things, too. He went up to his room and turned on the laptop, but didn't work. He started writing something without knowing what it was. A scene. Two characters, rain, a reunion. He stopped his fingers on the keyboard, saved the file as untitled text. He looked at the wooden box again, didn't touch it. He opened the notebook he'd brought in case inspiration struck. Drew a curved line, then another, a silhouette, a scarf. Was her, no face, but it was her. Why am I still clinging to something we left unfinished? The rain kept falling without pause. Yeah, don't do that.
Have what caused it about 1 month.
First, his window. Nope. From his window, he could see the closed bookstore across the street. The lights off, the sign swaying in the wind. He imagined Mara inside, drinking tea, binding books scented with glue and paper. Does she think of me too? Clara knocked gently before entering. Tomorrow there's a fair. You could go, if the crowd doesn't bother you. Is Mara going? She always sets up a booth with her notebooks. Maybe I'll go. Bring an umbrella. Even if the wind takes it, it gives the illusion of preparedness. Ellis smiled. He tucked the drawing between the notebook pages, turned off the light, but left the blind half open. The rain was his only audible company. He lay down, hugging the knitted blanket Claire had left. Closed his eyes with Mara's face imprinted in his memory. I don't know what will happen tomorrow, but I want to see her again. The letter was not opened that day. Sometimes truths need more time. End of day 4. So day 3 was depression.
Kisses.
Kisses. Day 5, winter fair. The sky was clear, but the air had an icy edge that cut the skin. Ellis woke up with the feeling that something was about to happen. His chest thumped with a strained rhythm, like there was an appointment he didn't remember scheduling. He opened the window. The murmur of voices and music drifted from the plaza. There's a fair today, in case the noise didn't give it away. You told me. I like to remind you, so you can't say you didn't know. He had breakfast in a rush, anxiety stuck in his throat. He put on his coat, gloves, and a gray scarf he found on the rack. I'm going to see her today, and I want to. I don't know what I want. He walked to the plaza, where the stalls lined up like wooden houses. There was the smell of homemade bread, hot chocolate, and wet leather. Children raw nope. Children ran between strings of bunting and tables with jam jars. A guitarist sang soft ballads by the fountain. Lucas. Hey, are you new or back? Excuse me? Never seen you before, but you've got the face of someone who's been here. I'm back a few days ago. Welcome. I'm Lucas, wandering musician, free therapy. Ellis. No titles for now. That's good. Sometimes titles are too tight. Lucas went back to playing with a smile that seemed to know too much. Ellis felt a slight flutter in his stomach. That guy had read him in 3 lines. He kept walking, still thinking about his words. He recognized Mara before fully seeing her. Her stall was decorated with colorful threads and hand-painted papers. There were notebooks, journals, bookmarks, each with unique details. I thought you weren't coming. I came for the chocolate, and because I knew you'd be here. So direct. It's almost scary. Want me to lie? No, I've gotten used to honesty, even when it stings. A little honest. Did someone else scare you with honesty? Some tried, but they didn't get that saying the truth isn't the same as dumping everything at once. I never knew what to say. That's why I left, and also why I came back. She offered him a notebook with a watercolor cover. This one made me think of you. Gray but not sad. Is that a compliment? Yes, even if it doesn't sound like one. Thanks. He took it and ran his fingers over it. The paper was rough, alive. Do you still draw? A little. Yesterday I sketched something without meaning to. It was you. Do you dream of me often? Only when I'm not busy dodging you. How poetic. How evasive. A boy came up and asked Mara if he could touch the notebooks. Only with clean hands, champ. The boy smiled and ran off to another stall. Ellis looked at her, feeling the fair's bustle fade around him. He had an idea, impulsive, the kind that can break or bring closer. Ellis swallowed hard. He could take a step, or stay in that comfortable almost. What if I lose her again by not asking anything? So I can either invite her to talk, to walk around the fair, or I can take a walk alone before returning to the stall. So obviously, we're asking her to walk with us. Want to rock? So rock? Want to walk around the fair a bit? Laura looked at him in surprise, then smiled just slightly. Leave the stall alone? What if someone takes something? I'll watch your stuff after. Promise not to steal even an eraser. Fine. But if anything's missing, I'm charging you for it. They walked among the stalls like two teens skipping class. Talked about silly things, weird jam names, the colors of knitted hats. Laughed at things only they understood. I like this. Like what? This not talking about the past for a while. We'll have to talk about it anyway, you know. I know, but not today. Then today, that's fine. They stopped in front of Lucas's stall. A song for the lovebirds? We're not that. Yet, says the wind. Play something sad, but beautiful. Like life itself. Lucas began to play a soft melody with chords like flowing water. Ellis and Mara looked at each other, said nothing, didn't need to. They then turned to the stall. Thanks for coming. Thanks for letting me stay. You made it easy for today. Tomorrow, too? We'll see how you behave. Ellis smiled. For the first time, he felt part of something. He bought a notebook even though she insisted on gifting it. To support local art, he said. He said goodbye with a shy gesture, like someone wanting to hug but not daring. He walked home slowly, notebook in hand, and a lighter heart. When he arrived, Clara was drinking tea with lemon cookies. I saw you laughing in the plaza. How strange. Strange, but nice. Did Lucas sing something to you? He read my mind. That boy's got more intuition than calendar. You do well to spend more time with him. And with Mara, that's another kind of medicine, stronger, needs careful dosage. Ellis took a cookie and sat across from her. Know what I like about seeing you like this? Like what? Like you unbutton something. You're less tense. Maybe I loosened the scarf. Or maybe someone loosened the knot. Ellis didn't reply, but smiled, mouth full of cookie and something more. No fair tomorrow, but life goes on. Don't dim out, okay? I'll try. That's enough. He went up to his room and opened the notebook. On the first page, he wrote just one word: reunion. Then he put away the notebook and sat on the bed. The letter was still in the box, no longer pressuring, just waiting. He closed his eyes with Lucas's music still vibrating in his ribs. The sky had dawned overcast, heavy with the rain that wouldn't fall. Ellis got Ellis got up later than usual, with a heavy head. He went downstairs. Oh, that was day 5. So day 5 was kind of like peaceful. In the storm, he took a step back and allowed himself to breathe.
I want to get this big right here so I can do this dance. I started over for him. This is how big I want to get so I can do the dance. Not too like muscular, but just like big enough like that. I'm beefy. I can do that dance for me right there.
I mean, you can do it now. You look just fine.
I want to be that big.
Day 6, to stay or not to stay. He went downstairs and found Claire folding clothes on the couch. I made you coffee. It's cold, but it's coffee. Thanks. You had such a strange face while you slept. I dreamed of Mom, I think. Clara nodded without looking at him, arranging a pair of socks in a pile. Did she say anything? No, she just looked at me, like she was waiting for something. She always looked more than talked. Sometimes she spoke with her eyes, like she knew something I didn't. And I'm sure she did. Your mother felt things before they happened. And me? What do I feel now? Ellis lowered his gaze. The steam from the coffee had already faded. Silence. Just the click of the chair's leave. Are you going out today? I don't know. Are you going to work? I don't know that either. Are you planning to stay here doing nothing much longer? Ellis looked at her, surprised and a bit annoyed. Is that what you think I'm doing? Nothing? You're floating, like you're waiting for something to push you. I just buried my mother. Sorry if I'm not ready to recognize my life, reorganize my life. All right, so that answers that. She did die. I'm not asking you to reorganize it, Elvis, just to decide if you want to be here. And what if I don't know? Then it's time you start figuring it out. Silence dropped like a stone between them. Clara kept folding clothes without looking at him. Ellis set the cup on the table and went back upstairs without a word. He sat on his bed, head in his hands. What do they expect from me? That I rebuild myself in a week? He closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered the dream. His mother was in the garden, by the rose bush. She wore a red scarf in her hair.
It says movement.
Probably the wind. She didn't speak, just looked at him and pointed toward the house. You know, I will say,
that grief comes in a lot of forms, and some people can bounce right back, and other people can't. And the people who either bounce back quickly or are not going through it tend to look at people who take a lot longer to heal like they should just get over it and hurry up and move on. And sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes people need years. Did you want me to come back or to keep walking? He paced from side to side, unable to find anything that calmed him. The letter was there, mute, untouched. Is this about her or about me? He changed clothes without thinking much and left the house aimlessly. The wind was strong, and the first drops were starting to fall. He walked to the square, then took a side street. Turning a corner, he saw Mara's bookstore, Tinta Libre. The door was open, but there were no customers. Mara was facing away, organizing boxes. You again? I didn't know where else to go. There are cafes, plazas, cinemas showing silent films, but none have your charming sarcasm. I'm in silent mode today. Make the most of it. Ella sat on a stool by the counter. Mara moved fluidly among the shelves, as if dancing with the books. I argue with Clara. Why? Because she doesn't know if I'm staying, and neither do I. That sounds honest. Have you ever not known where you belong? All the time, even now. But you seem stable. That's emotional makeup. Ellis laughed half-heartedly. Mara glanced at him without stopping. I thought coming back would help me. And didn't it? It's tearing me apart. Sometimes you have to break the vase to see what water is left inside. They stayed silent, listening to the rain on the roof. Ellis lowered his head, breathing deeply. He got up and walked to a low shelf. There was a book with a torn cover. Letters to a young poet. It arrived long ago in a donated box. No one asked for it. It's like it's waiting for someone. He opened it at random. A highlighted phrase spoke about learning to endure open questions. Live the questions now. Maybe someday you will live into the answers. I underlined that. I read it after I left. Did it help you? It hurt, but sometimes pain also pushes. Do you think I should leave? I'm not the right person to tell you that, but I want you to be. Mara leaned on the edge of the counter and looked him straight in the eyes. Then you have to stay, but not for me, for you. And if I don't find a reason, I'll lend you one until you find your own. Ellis felt something inside him loosen. It didn't disappear, but it hurt less. The sound of the rain grew clearer. Mara handed him a steaming cup of tea. I don't have coffee, just this. That's fine. Today anything will do. They drank in silence. The warmth of the cup gave him some clarity back. Outside, the wind had stopped. The drops were falling more gently. Thanks for not kicking me out. I won't promise I won't do it another day. That's a risk I'm willing to take. Ella set the cup down. Outside, the rain had let its guard down. For a moment, he hesitated whether to stay a bit longer or let that kind silence turn into farewell. Hmm. Want to do both options. Option one or two. Option one or two.
Go for a walk, Ernie.
He got up, leaving the empty cup on the table. She said nothing and didn't stop him. Ellis went out into the drizzle. He didn't run. He walked cobbled streets, feeling the drops like caresses. He passed the school where he had learned to draw, the house where his friend Julian lived. Everything was familiar and foreign. At a corner, a lady offered him an umbrella. Ellis declined with a smile. He welcomed the rain, as if he needed to cleanse something he couldn't name. He returned home unhurried. Clara wasn't in the living room. And then it doesn't help that this entire game so far has been nothing but reading. So I'm like reading her to sleep.
Good night.
Well, it's a book.
Good
It's
night, Andy.
It's a reading her to sleep. He returned home unhurried. Clara wasn't in the living room. On the table was a plate of homemade bread and a note. Reheat the coffee if you want. I'm learning too. Ellis folded it slowly and placed it inside the notebook. He went upstairs and wrote. Sometimes staying is an act of courage. Then he closed the notebook and lay down on the bed. He didn't think of the letter. He didn't think of his mother. He only thought of a firm gaze, a warm cup, a borrowed phrase. Maybe I'll stay a little longer. And that is the end of day 6. So he's definitely moving through the motions. Obviously, he's numb. People grieve differently, so the grandmother, I'm assuming was his mother's mom, is going to handle it differently than he is. Day 7, the rain doesn't apologize. Rain fell as if there were no tomorrow. Each drop hit the roof like an unanswered question. Ellis woke up feeling like he had slept inside a dream. The house was silent. Clara couldn't be heard. He peeked into the hallway. Everything was calm. He went down to the kitchen and found a note written in black ink. Went downtown for errands. Be back when it lets up a bit. Don't drown. He smiled unintentionally. He had breakfast with cold toast and reheated coffee. A perfect Sunday if one wanted to disappear from the map. He looked out the window. What was that? Okay. He looked out the window. The world was gray and aquatic. The streets seemed empty, only the sound of water running through the gutters. He sat on the couch with a blanket over his legs. He tried to read, couldn't. He tried to write, even less. He looked at his phone, not a single message. Maybe she's at the bookstore. He got up without thinking too much, put on his coat, grabbed an old umbrella, and headed outside. The water beat against the umbrella as if trying to pierce through it. He walked fast, but without rush, like someone unsure if they want to arrive or turn back. On the way, he passed on Vicente's shop, still open, though run by another face now. He went in, saw an old box of lemon cookies, like the ones he used to share with Mara as kids. He bought them without thinking, didn't know if they were for her or himself. Turning the corner, he saw the light on at Tinta Libre. The door was slightly ajar. The sign said closed. He gently pushed it open and peeked in.
Hello? I bring offerings. I need shelter. I can leave if I'm intruding. I bring offerings. Mara raised an amused eyebrow. I wasn't going to let you in, but cookies are cookies. You may enter. Mara was barefoot, hair tied up, holding a mug in her hands. She wore a long sweater and mismatched socks. She sat on the floor, surrounded by books like they were sleeping animals. You have no idea how good it feels to be here. It's my cave. Sundays are lawless. Even for me? You're a questionable exception. Ellis left the umbrella at the entrance and sat across from her. He pulled out the cookies from his coat and offered them. Do you still like these? More than I admit, thanks. They shared one in silence. The damp texture matched the weather. The yellow light of a place softened the world's edges. Outside, the rain continued its uninterrupted symphony. Do you always work on Sundays? No, but today I didn't want to think. Me neither. They shared a thick silence, the kind only people with a shared past can hold. Mara turned the mug in her hands as if reading secrets in the steam. Do you remember when we played the no talking game? And we won every day because we spoke with gestures. Nobody understood that. Didn't need to. She looked at him briefly, like she wanted to say something she regretted holding back. Do you remember the night at the lighthouse? The storm one? That one. We snuck out of the house and climbed the stairs with flashlights off because you said you wanted to feel what fear was like in the dark. And you said fear was nicer if someone whispered it to you. We were soaked, trembling, and happy until you left. No warning, no letter, not even a see you. I left with the guilt of not knowing if I should stay. I stayed with the question of why it wasn't enough. The words floated in the air like wet leaves. Ellis swallowed hard. No excuses would do. I'm sorry. Don't say that. Not today. They returned to silence, but it was a different one. More tense, more warm, more human. She got up and walked to the counter. Want tea? Yes, please. The sound of boiling water filled the space like a lullaby. Ellis watched her move. Something in the way she existed grounded him. I've got red fruits or ginger. Ginger, to see if I can wake up from this dream. She returned with 2 mugs and sat next to him on the floor. They drank slowly, as if time wasn't chasing them for once. Are you afraid of getting close again? Aren't you? Very much. They looked at each other, not with desire, with nostalgia. Like 2 survivors recognizing each other on the shore. Sometimes I think if I had left, I wouldn't remember you so vividly. Sometimes I think if I had stayed, I'd have ruined you. How flattering. I mean, I didn't know who I was. Not sure I do now. But you came back, and I found you. She leaned her head on his shoulder without asking. So we can either lean our head against Mara's, stay still without reacting, or gently move away. We're leaning the foot. Ellis tilted his head until his forehead touched hers. It wasn't a romantic gesture, but an intimate one, almost reflexive, like seeking warmth mid-storm. Mara didn't move. She just sighed, deeply, as if she'd been waiting for that gesture for hours. Softly, don't leave this time. Ellis closed his eyes for a moment. He felt her warmth, the calm rhythm of her breath, whispering, not if you keep lending me reasons to stay. Mara smiled slightly, a smile Ellis didn't see but felt. For a moment, everything seemed to make sense. Outside, the rain beat harder, but it no longer mattered. In that corner of the world, there was warmth and closeness. Ellis allowed himself to imagine, for the first time, staying not just in the town, but in that company. Are you staying? I don't know yet, but I don't want to leave anymore. That is something already. They stayed like that for a long time. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they just listened to their own breathing. The afternoon turned ashen. The light seemed dimmer. In a corner, Ivan appeared briefly. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's okay, we're closed anyway. Hey, Ivan. I was just dropping off some books. I'll bring them another time. You don't have to leave. It's okay, another day. Ivan smiled politely, but it didn't last. He left in silence. Alright, don't tell me Ivan likes her. Ellis lowered his gaze. Mara didn't say anything. Your bookstore has a lift of its own. Has a life of its own. Only when someone stays long enough to notice. Night fell and the rain finally stopped. Ellis stood up, a bit clumsily, legs numb. Thanks for letting me be here. Wasn't so terrible. Can I come back? I don't know. You'll have to bring cookies. They smiled. Ellis walked out to the street. The ground reflected lamplights like fallen stars. He walked slowly back home. Clara was sleeping on the couch, a blanket up to her neck. On the table, a covered plate and a note. Saved you dinner and a bit of patience. Ellis smiled. He went upstairs quietly. He lay down, still wearing his coat. Tonight, I don't need to think. Just remember. And that is the end of day 7. So he's finding peace where there once was chaos, and he's allowing himself to move past the hard times and let at least some of the light in, which is not a bad thing. Day 8, what begins to open. Dawn brought silence, as if the town were holding its breath. Ellis woke up with a blank mind and a full heart. It wasn't raining, but the air still smelled of storm. He went down to the kitchen. Claire was already there, peeling apples with surgical precision. Did you sleep well? Yes, for the first time in several days. Sometimes the rain washes more than clothes. He sat across from her and watched each peel fall in a spiral. Can I ask you something? You can. I won't promise to answer. Ellis took out the wooden box and placed it on the table. Clara looked at it without touching it. Do you know what it says? No, and if I did, I wouldn't tell you either. Did she talk about me? Always, even if you didn't believe it. What did she say? That she missed you? That she made mistakes? That she was afraid of you? Afraid? Why would she be afraid? Afraid? Afraid of not knowing how to love you properly. And you? I think I made mistakes too, but at least I'm here, peeling apples. Do you have any good memories of her? Something that makes you smile? Clara went quiet for a moment, then set the knife on the board. Once, when she was about 15, your mother skipped school to bring me flowers. I'd had a horrible day. I worked at the hospital double shift. When I got home, she was in the kitchen with a stolen bouquet from some neighbor's garden and a cake made with more sugar than flour. She hugged me without saying a word and made me laugh so hard my glasses fell into the mashed potatoes. Her lips trembled. She shut her eyes for a moment, as if chasing away a mist. She was complicated, but she also knew how to love, in her own way. Ellis looked down. His fingers trembled.
He opened the box. The letter was still there, unopened. This time he broke the seal. Oh! But he didn't read it all. Just one line. I didn't know how to take care of you, but I loved you in every mistake I made. That hits hard too. Ellis closed the letter gently, as if it were a wound still not ready to be touched. Clara said nothing. She served him coffee and returned to her apples. Thank you. Don't say it to me, say it to yourself. Ellis went out for a walk. He needed air, not answers. The streets were wet but clean. Fallen leaves formed reddish carpets on the corners. He passed the school, the bakery, the old closed kiosk. Without realizing it, he reached Tinta Libre. The door was open. The sign read, "Open, more or less." He went inside. The place smelled of fresh paper and freshly baked cookies. Farah was organizing a stack of notebooks. The linen of her shirt seemed to wrinkle in time with her movements. Her messy bun barely held her hair, as if refusing to tame it. Have you already become a regular customer? We can say just came for the sarcasm, didn't know where else to go, or this place is starting to feel like home. So we're gonna go with the third one. This place is starting to feel like home. About time someone noticed. Includes free sarcasm and books with bent pages. Sounds fair. Every time she smiled, Ellis felt something shift inside without knowing why. Ellis sat in his usual corner, as if it were his own. I read the letter. Well, part of it. And I didn't get angry. It hurt, but I didn't get angry. That's a good start. She approached with a steaming cup in her hands. Want to talk about it? Not yet, but thanks. A little, I just want to know why. I'd rather listen. Tell me something about you. All right, so I want to go with 2 or 3 because I think both of those would be really good right here. We're going to go with the middle one. Sometimes love comes with a manual in another language and no translator. They drank in silence for a few minutes. The noise of the world stayed outside. Mara sat beside him without a word. Ellis felt that the silence between them was no longer uncomfortable. It was a refuge. Have you ever forgiven someone without telling them? Isn't it obvious? You. He didn't know what to say, but something inside him cracked gently. It wasn't pain, it was relief. Why? Because it hurt more to carry the grudge than to let you go. And now? Now I don't have to let go of anything because you're here. Ellis looked at her. She didn't look away. There was something new between them, something that had been hidden under layers of fear. Now it was on the surface, beating. I want to stay, Mara. Then stay. The shop bell rang. A customer entered. Mara stood up smoothly. Ellis stayed there, filling the space he left behind. While she helped, he grabbed a sheet of paper and began to write. He didn't know if it was a letter, a poem, or a sketch. It was a way to breathe. The customer left. The place was theirs again. What are you writing? I don't know yet, but you're in it. I hope I'm well written. Mara came back with a book in hand. This is weird. You'll like it. Ellis read aloud an absurd and poetic paragraph.
How does someone write something like this and not regret it? Maybe they did regret it, but they'd already published it. They laughed, and the world felt less sharp again. He said goodbye with a long look and a see you tomorrow. She didn't answer, just nodded with a crooked smile. Ellis walked back slowly with the letter in his pocket and a little less weight on his back. Clara was knitting on the couch with the radio softly playing in the background. Feeling lighter? A little. Good. The house notices too. He went up to his room. He opened the letter, read a second paragraph. I hope you learn to forgive me without stopping loving yourself first. He closed the page and put it away carefully. He lay down with the window open. The cold air touched his face like an old caress. Not everything has to be resolved at once, but this is healing. And that is the end of day 8. So he's making progress. He's getting to a point where he's going to open and read the letter. And it's a lot to take in, so reading it a little bit at a time can help. He's healing, definitely healing. Day 9, Lighthouse of Silence. The day dawned clear, with the sky so blue it hurt to look at. Ellis woke with a fixed idea in his head. He had to go back to the lighthouse, to that place where he started to fall apart, and maybe could begin to mend. He went downstairs and found Clara baking a sponge cake. You've got the face of someone about to make a big decision. I'm going to the lighthouse of silence. Alone? I don't know yet. He poured himself a cup of coffee and went out to the garden. The sky opened like a fan above the pines. The wind smelled of salt, old wood, and promise. He pulled out his phone and typed a message. Want to come with me to the lighthouse? Several minutes passed with no reply. Just when he thought about giving up, the phone buzzed. Mara, I'm on my way. Don't bring excuses. He smiled. His heart thudded with an irregular rhythm. He changed clothes, grabbed his notebook, the letter, and an extra scarf. Ellis arrived at the clearing early. Mara wasn't there yet. So we're back at the beginning, where we were looking at this exact picture frame. He approached the edge of the cliff where the stones crunched underfoot. The wind tugged at his coat, but he didn't move. He just looked out at the sea. He pulled the letter from his pocket and looked at it again, still unopened. He held it up to the light. The paper bore marks from his fingers, bent corners. How many times do I need to reread what I don't understand? He sat on a fallen log. The lighthouse loomed in the distance, frozen in time. Beside him, half buried in earth and grass, he found a rounded piece of glass, like a weathered marble. He rolled it between his fingers, hypnotized, held it up to his eye, and everything turned green. He closed his fist around the glass and took a deep breath. It's not that I want answers. I want to stop hurting. Oof. He went to a dark place just then. At that moment, he heard footsteps on the stones. It was Mara. Ready to face ghosts? As long as they don't bite. Some just stare at you until you understand why they're there. The path to the lighthouse was long, winding through rocks and shrubs. They walked in silence, sometimes brushing shoulders unintentionally. The sound of the sea grew louder with each step. I haven't come here since I was 18. I came alone once, sat and screamed where no one could hear. Did it help? No, but it kept me from exploding inside. Guiding light, we got a trophy. When they arrived, the lighthouse of silence stood tall, trusted and majestic. The sea crashed against the rocks without apology. They sat on the stone bench where they used to read together.
Thank you for coming. I'm surprised you said yes, or didn't know whether to drag you or go alone. We're just gonna do a simple thank you for coming. Thanks for coming, even though I didn't know how to ask. Sometimes thinking it loudly is enough. But I heard you. Ellis lowered his gaze. He didn't know if that literal was literal or poetic. Maybe both. Why did you bring me? Because I don't want to be alone if I break. I'm not taping you back together. I can hold you while you look at the pieces. Open the letter in silence. Stare at the sea to distract yourself. Make a joke to lighten the mood. We're going to open the letter in silence. Ellis took out the letter, already opened. He held it between his fingers. The wind tried to snatch it away, but he gripped it tightly. My mother wrote this knowing I might never forgive her. Have you? Not completely, but I don't hate her anymore. The waves crashed below, marking each phrase like punctuation. Then he finally decided. He read slowly in silence, word by word. I thought she'd erased me, but she was full of mistakes, not abandonment. Sometimes guilt paralyzes more than fear. Ellis's voice cracked. Tears began to fall without permission. Mara said nothing, didn't console him. She just moved closer. She rested her hand on his and stated, Sorry for showing myself like this. Sorry would be not showing yourself. Ellis closed the letter and tucked it between the pages of his notebook. The wind felt warmer now, or maybe he was more open to it. What will you do with all of this? Turn it into something that won't destroy me. They sat for a long time. The sun slowly sank toward the sea, painting the sky in orange and copper. Ellis looked at her. She held his gaze with calm intensity. Did you stay in Bayamansa by choice? At first, no, but then I realized what I needed was here. And what if I needed, and what if what I needed is here too? Then you already know the answer. They began to walk down the path without hurry. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It was deep, as if it held everything that didn't need saying. They reached town just as the lights were beginning to turn on. Ellis walked a bit slower, stretching out the last steps. They stopped in front of Tinta Libre. Thanks for coming. Thanks for asking me. Ellis looked down briefly. When he looked up, she was watching him with unguarded tenderness. Want to have dinner tomorrow? Was that a formal invitation? I'm not sure I have the credentials, but I'm trying. Mara chuckled softly. Ellis joined in, more nervous than funny. I accept. On one condition. What is it? That it's not a goodbye in disguise. I'm not leaving, not yet. For a moment, they stood facing each other, unmoving. The street was nearly empty. The bookstore sign flickered, as if holding its breath too. Laura stepped slightly closer. Ellis didn't move. Their hands brushed as if asking a silent question. They didn't hug. They didn't kiss. But there was a gesture, a brief touch on the forearm, a thumb brushing skin, that held what they weren't ready to say. She looked down as if something had moved her, and she didn't want to show it. Ellis understood and didn't push. They parted with a gentle smile, the kind that weighs more than 1,000 words. Ellis returned home with wet shoes, messy hair, and a chest lighter than it had felt in years. Clara sat down on the couch, knitting with patient motions, a cup of steaming tea beside her. You're back late, or early, depending on how you see it. I got lost watching the sea. A good place to get lost, or found. Ellis hung his coat on the rack. He hesitated for a moment, then instead of going upstairs, sat across from her. Clara looked up surprised. Not looking yourself up to write? locking yourself up to write? Not today. I want to sit here with you. Clara disguised her emotion by adjusting her scarf on her lap. Your eyes are red. The wind, and other things. Feeling better? Not sure about better, but more whole. That's something. Ellis leaned forward, hands clasped. Today I remembered Mom. Something small I hadn't thought of in years. What was it? One afternoon, she forgot to pick me up from painting class. I waited on the curb with my drawing in hand. When she arrived, breathless, she apologized like the world was ending. She hugged me so tightly she crumpled the page. I cried for the drawing, and I cried for me. Claire gripped the needles tighter. She dropped a stitch, but didn't fix it. She always punished herself more than anyone judged her. I never told her I forgave her, or that I understood. Maybe today you did. They sat in silence for a while, accompanied only by the ticking wall clock. Want a cup of tea? As long as it's not the digestive kind. Then I'll make you cinnamon and orange, the kind that heals more than your stomach. She stood slowly before heading to the kitchen. She placed a brief hand on his shoulder. She didn't say anything, but Ellis felt the warmth behind the gesture. When he went up to his room later, he wasn't in a hurry to write, but he wrote anyway. He wrote, Today I cried by the sea, and the sea didn't apologize for seeing me. He closed his eyes, embraced by a new silence. And that is the end of day 9. So he gained a bit of clarity. He reached a point where he could read his mother's letter. And he allowed himself to have the big emotions. Day 10, unfiltered night. The afternoon fell early, as if the sky was in a hurry to turn off. Ellis spent the day between unfinished sketches and long silences. Lucas had left flyers all over town. Concert under the stars, Central Plaza. Clara had gone out early with friends. Ellis stayed alone with his cup of tea. He looked at his reflection in the cup, thought of everything he hadn't said the last time they were alone. The tea tasted like waiting, and the house silence felt louder than ever. He stood up with a sigh, feeling like if he didn't move, he'd rust. His phone vibrated, one new message. Come over after the concert, something quiet. I've got the wine. Ellis didn't reply. He just got dressed, a bit neater than usual. The concert was brief, intimate, without microphones. Lucas played in front of the fountain, wearing a wool hat and a calm smile. Ellis listened from the shadows, without getting too close. When it ended, people scattered like mist. Among the people leaving, one figure remained still near a lamp post. I didn't know if you were going to show up. Neither did I. Did you like it? Yeah, it was serene. Like no one expected anything from anyone. Sometimes that's all you need. They looked at each other without urgency. The music still echoed on in their ears. If you ever want to really talk, you know where to find me. Thanks, but tonight I can't. I know, I'm not asking anything. Ivan gently touched his shoulder as he walked past. A brief gesture, no pressure. Ellis stood still for a few seconds, watching him fade into the shadows. Then he looked south, where a warm light was waiting. I don't know if I'm looking for refuge, or if I'm finally daring to let it go. He walked toward Tinta Libre. Mara opened the door with a glass in hand. I thought you'd cancel last minute. I almost did. And what made you come? The I've got the wine part was persuasive. He stepped in. The bookstore smelled of old paper and a faint citrus perfume he couldn't place. Candles flickered in empty jam jars, casting shadows on the book spines like they were breathing. The music was soft, instrumental, with broken notes like dry leaves underfoot. Sit wherever you like. The house is small, but the wine is good. Works for me. They sat on the floor among cushions and stacked books. The wine was red, strong, with a taste of open endings. Did you like Lucas? He always plays like he's asking for forgiveness or permission to touch something you don't want to hear. They drank in silence for a few minutes. Their eyes met with no rush. Have you always been like this? Like what? Like you know things no one's told you? No, but I learned to read people. It's easier than reading myself. I've never been good at reading anyone. Sometimes I feel like you were better at it than you think. A pause settled between them, not tense, but expectant. Why are you letting me in again? Because I haven't closed the door yet, and because silence hurts me more than ugly words. And what if I mess up again? I reserve the right to kick you out. They laughed, but the wine loosened more than just tongues. Sometimes I feel like a walking accident, and sometimes you're the only reason I still believe people can change. Ellis looked at her. She looked down. The air was thicker, more real. I loved you deeply, Ellis. I know. But you also made me feel invisible. I know. And there's no good excuses for that. I don't want you to say sorry. I want you to be different. I'm trying. I can tell. And that scares me more than if you weren't. Silence returned, heavier than before. I don't know how to love well. No one does, but you learn by practicing. Ellis set his glass on the floor. Mara did the same. They leaned closer, didn't touch, but they were inches apart. Do you want to kiss me? Yes. Then why don't you? Because I don't want to ruin this if it's not the right moment. She looked at him for a long time, then pulled back slightly. Good. Then you'll have to show me you know how to wait. Accept the pause in silence or take her hand without kissing. Ellis slowly extended his hand, like someone stretching a thread between two uncertain shores. Mara looked down at his fingers, hesitated a moment, then let her palm meet his. It was a light touch, but full of restrained electricity, like both knew that gesture said more than a mistimed kiss. You're stubborn, but this time I like it. They didn't move, just stayed like that, hands joined over the wine and books. The warmth of that shared skin spoke of second chances, of fears daring to tremble in sync. Neither forced what came next. Sometimes holding a hand is holding a wordless promise. They drank more wine. Now they spoke of less painful things. Books, music, childhood, scents that reminded them of school. Hours passed slowly, as if they had nowhere to be. Outside, the night filled with crickets and humidity. Will you stay a bit longer? I don't want to leave. Then help me blow out the candles before they burn down completely. They moved through the bookstore together, one by one, silencing the light. In each jam jar with a candle, their shadows danced one last time before going out. Sometimes Mara went ahead, sometimes Ellis, but always nearby. Their hands brushed accidentally, and they lingered in the air. As they bent down together to blow out a candle, their foreheads nearly touched. It wasn't clumsy. It was as if their thoughts brushed too. When they reached the last candle, they paused. The jar sat atop a stack of books like a quiet altar. They didn't speak, just looked at each other, lit by that fragile point of light. Alex extended his hand, but stopped inches from her cheek. He didn't touch her. It was a suspended gesture, like a formless question. Mara tilted her head slightly toward his palm, not as permission, but as an echo, as if she recognized something in that gesture that didn't need to be completed. The candle flickered like a breath of fire before dying into smoke. The darkness didn't separate them, it only made the other's warmth sharper. With you, even darkness feels like a safe place. Don't fall in love with this version of me. I break too sometimes. Then let me be there when it happens. Not to fix you, to be with you in the pieces. She swallowed, said nothing, but her breath grew softer, more tremulous. She looked down for a second, like she couldn't hold so much and didn't want to let go of any of it. Ellis didn't move. He waited. When she looked up again, Mara seemed different, not stronger, more present. Good night, Ellis. Good night, Mara. The goodbye didn't sound like closure. It sounded like a quiet promise. He stepped out with his heart beating at a different frequency. There was no kiss, but there was something stronger. Something that promised to stay. I don't know what this is, but I know I don't want to lose it. And that is the end of day 10. Day 11, calls from another world. The day broke with a deceptive calm, like something was about to snap. Ellis woke up to the sound of his phone vibrating on the table. A persistent buzz, as if the world was speaking to him through a very thin wall. He looked at the screen, unknown number. He hesitated for a second, still answered. The voice. Ellis Nunez, freelance graphic designer? Yes, who's calling? We're calling from SMV Studio. We have your portfolio. We're interested in working with you. Ellis sat up, sleep vanishing instantly in surprise. His heart raced like he had just missed a train or caught it. What kind of job? Big project, foreign client, full-time, office in capital, starts next month. On site? Yes, at least the first few months. Then a hybrid model could be negotiated. Ellis ran a hand down his face. The room suddenly felt smaller, like it couldn't hold everything he was feeling. He's about to leave. He thought of his machine, his work table he'd barely touched since returning, of the unanswered emails, of the city, of the speed. He didn't say yes or no, just ended the call and stayed there, phone still in hand, as if he could still hear the voice on the other end. He saved the number. He went down to the kitchen. Clara was already reading the newspaper. You look like you've seen a ghost. I got a job offer in the city. Important? Pretty big, but I'd have to move. And what are you thinking of doing? I don't know. I was expecting it. I wasn't expecting it. And I don't know if I want to miss the opportunity. There, everything's bigger. Projects, connections. I could grow as a designer. Feel part of something again. And don't you feel part of something here? I do, but it's different. Here I'm learning to breathe again. There they offered me wings. The problem is you can't do both at the same time. Clara said nothing more. She just poured him coffee. Ellis held the mug in his hands, as if the warmth could organize his thoughts. You know, I almost left once too, right? Where to? Cordoba. I'd been offered a scholarship to study literature. I was 20, suitcase packed and everything. And why didn't you go? Your grandfather showed up with a bouquet of flowers and a terrified face. He told me he'd wait for me if that's what I needed, but he didn't ask me to stay. He just looked at me with those eyes, and I knew. You think something similar is happening to me? I think you're afraid to choose because choosing always leaves something behind, and what's left behind hurts. Ellis looked down. The coffee no longer steamed. I don't want to be wrong. No one does, but you can't live balancing between two rooftops. Clara glanced sideways at him, with a mix of tenderness and weight. Ellis, I know I've been tough since you got here, but it's not because I don't want you here. It's because I want you whole, with roots. I know, even if it's hard to hear sometimes. Claire wiped her hands with the dish towel. Her voice lowered just a bit. Your mother also doubted everything, all the time, until one day she chose. Not the city or the countryside. She chose to be a mother, and she was beautiful in that choice, even if she was afraid. A different silence took hold, softer, more fragile. Clara got up to put things away. Ellis noticed her rubbing at her eyes. You okay? Something in my eye. Old habit. Ellis didn't insist. He stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. Thanks for being here, for all of this. Don't thank me just yet. Wait until you decide. Ellis looked out the window. The town was as still as ever. He went for a walk. The offer spun circles in his head. He passed by the square, Horizonte Cafe, the bakery. Everything was in its place. And yet, in his mind, the city streets vibrated. Subway stations, three-story bookstores, conversations in co-working studios, the promise of something new. The thrill of walking where no one knew his name. He wondered if that's what he missed. Not carrying a story on every corner. He reached into Libre. The door was open. Mara was hanging notebooks with wooden clothespins on the string. Want to tell me what's going on or prefer to sweat it out in mystery? I got a job offer in Capital. Uh-huh. It's good, really good. It's what I always wanted. And I don't know if I want to leave. Mara gently took down a notebook, placed it in a box. Do you want my opinion? Always. Don't stay for me, but if you leave, don't let it be out of habit. Habit? Of running away, of thinking everything you need is somewhere else. Ellis nodded silently. I'm afraid that if I leave, this disappears. This isn't neon, but it's not smoke either. She stepped closer, looked him in the eyes. I'm here, but I won't run after you if you leave. I wouldn't ask you to. I know. That's why I can't say this without breaking. Ellis leaned against the bookshelf. Why now? Why not 2 weeks ago? Because sometimes life checks if you've learned anything. And what did you learn? That second chances only matter if they're not replicas of the first. They stayed quiet. The background music was barely a whisper. Ellis looked down, then slowly up again. Mara was still there, steady, not pushing, but not letting go either. I've never been good at choosing. I always wait for life to shove me one way or the other. Choosing is a muscle. You train it. And if I choose wrong, then you mess up, like everyone, like me. But at least it'll be your mistake. Ellis looked at her with a mix of awe and tenderness. He'd never seen her so calm. Not resigned, but at peace with what she couldn't control. Mara stepped closer, then again. You're not the same person who walked through that door a few days ago, and neither am I. Ellis noticed how the afternoon light filtered through the window, giving Mara's eyes a golden glow, almost unreal. Ellis, if you leave, I want you to know I won't wait for you, but I won't forget you either. Ellis felt something vibrating in his chest, a strange mix of nostalgia for what he hadn't yet lost. He stepped closer, not to kiss her, not yet, but to touch her hand, just barely, a conscious brush. Mara didn't pull back. She held it for a moment, then let go gently, like returning something borrowed. Whatever it is, live it fully. If you stay with everything you are.
If you leave, don't take doubt with you in your suitcase. Ellis nodded slightly, as if his head knew before his body. Then the bookstore's music changed. Something slow, old, like a postcard from another era. They didn't dance, but something in their stance aligned, as if they shared a silent waltz. In that moment, the world didn't ask for definitions, only presence. Ellis felt the whole world had shrunk to fit inside that bookstore. Can I ask you something? Anything? Whatever you decide, say it out loud. Don't let it get lost in silence. Promise. They said goodbye with a brief hug, firm and real. Ellis walked to the waterfront. The sky began to turn a golden gray. He sat on the low wall, feet dangling over the space between rock and foam. The sea didn't roar, it breathed, like him. He pulled a pebble from his pocket. He couldn't remember when he picked it up, but now he turned it between his fingers like it held a key. He closed his eyes a moment, the wind ruffling his hair, his thoughts. What if everything I want is here? What if what I really want is there? We're gonna go with here. What if everything I want is here, but I'm just afraid to be on it, to bet on it? He thought of the city, the loneliness sealed in an apartment with a gray view. He thought of Clara, the cup of cold coffee, the shared silences, her eyes sharper than harsh. He thought of Mara, of the way her voice lowered when she spoke seriously, of how she had touched him without words or with words that didn't ask for promises. He remembered the wine, the almost kisses, the gazes that held without breaking. He remembered a conversation with his mother many years ago when she told him sometimes places choose us. He never fully understood it until now. He leaned forward. The sea was still there, immense, inaccessible, but patient. He took out his phone, looked at it without unlocking. He knew an answer was waiting, but for now, all he had were questions. He took a deep breath as if trying to save that moment inside himself. He stayed there a long time, staring at the horizon, not waiting for signs, just learning how to stay still. He returned home at dusk. Decided? Not yet, but I'm not running away from deciding anymore. That's already an answer, even if it doesn't sound like one. I'm afraid that no matter what I choose, something will break. The trick isn't avoiding pain, it's making sure it's worth it. He went up to his room, sat in front of his notebook. He wrote, "There, they offer me a future. Here, I'm starting to feel the present." He looked at the letter once more, didn't read it again. He no longer needed answers, only courage. And that's the end of day 11. Day 12, Unhurried Sunday. Sunday dawned with the smell of toast and sunlight filtering through the curtains. Ellis woke up without any sudden jolt. For the first time, there was no weight on his chest. He went down to the kitchen. Claire was stirring a pot, humming something wordless. Did you sleep? I slept. Good. You have the face of someone who didn't fight the world in their dreams. Not yet. Then enjoy it before the world wakes up. Ellis poured another cup of tea while Clara talked about the lemon tree that wouldn't bear lemons, about the radio repeating songs, about a letter she thought of writing but never did. Ellis listened, not out of curiosity, no, it says courtesy, but out of pleasure. And you? Did you always know you were going to stay? No, but one day you stop packing and realize you've already taken root. That phrase lingered as they shared warm bread and one of those silences that don't weigh.
The phone buzzed. A message from Mara. Can you come? I need hands that can count to 10 without breaking anything. On my way. He arrived at the bookstore before noon. Mara was waiting at the entrance, hair tied back in pants and paint stains on her hands. I needed to reorganize the shelves and paint that wall sage green. That's a real color? Yes, don't argue with someone who sells notebooks. They went in. The place smelled of lukewarm coffee and fresh paint. There were boxes everywhere, books stacked up, brushes in jars. The plan is not to have everything collapse while we do it. Ambitious plan. They started by emptying out an entire wall. Bar organized by colors, sizes, and emotional vibe. Ellis didn't understand a thing, but didn't argue. Why emotional vibe? Because some books weigh more than how they make you feel, not by their size. And me, what vibe do I give off? Did that happen to you with someone that they weighed on you? Say nothing and keep organizing. Number one. And me, what vibe do I give off? Soft cover, but with a reinforced spine. Ollie. Is that good? It's weird, and I like weird. They worked in silence for a while. The light came in through the big windows and caressed the book spines. Mara sang softly a tune Ellis didn't know. I like your voice when you don't realize you're singing. Then don't tell me or I'll stop doing it. They laughed. It laughed with no hidden meaning. Then came the pants. The paints! Ellis held the ladder. Mara painted, hanging like an elegant cat. She splashed his nose by accident. That was war. Tactical accident. You're a dead man. The chase lasted 2 laps around the counter. It ended with both lying on the floor, laughing like teenagers. Ellis had paint on his cheek, Mara on her forehead. This feels good. Lying on the floor, covered in sage green? Yes, and more than that. They stayed like that for a few seconds, in silence. The world was that bookstore, that moment. Mara rested her painted forehead against Ellis's shoulder, saying nothing. He felt that contact like a shared heartbeat, brief and deep. They made no extra gestures. Sometimes closeness needs no movement. Do you know what's happening to me? What? I'm afraid this will break if I name it. Then let's not say anything. Perfect. For a moment, Ellis allowed himself to imagine a life with gentle routines. Books to organize, walls to paint, silence to share. And deep down, he felt that could also be a future. They got up, cleaned what they could, and sat to eat something. Cheese, bread, nuts, and white wine in teacups. They laughed with childhood stories, teased each other about their quirks. As a kid, I was afraid to cross the kitchen at night. I used to dream my dad was there, standing silently. But it wasn't him. It was like a shadow imitating him. And what did you do? I'd leap from the door to the hallway like the floor was lava. And did it work? It never caught me. They laughed, but Ellis's eyes lingered a second longer in the void. I used to think if I slept on my back, I'd have nightmares. And was it true? Once I dreamed of you. You had wings and a face like you wanted to fly away.
Ugh.
Oh, wow. Fine, Bill.
Need smell? My farts.
I'm dead. Ellis didn't know what to say. I love you too. Would you like me to stay? Yes. No pause, no hesitation, just that word. said without filter. But I want you to stay because you want to. Not for me, not out of fear, not out of routine. Because you feel it, truly. I'm starting to. They looked at each other, and in that look was everything they didn't know how to say. The afternoon fell without them noticing. Ellis washed the brushes. Mara organized the books. The phone buzzed on the counter. A new message. Hi Ellis, just checking if you're still interested in the offer. We can schedule a call. Ellis read it twice, didn't reply, put the phone back in his pocket without looking again. I like when we share the simple things. Because the simple things are sometimes the hardest to achieve. Because the simple doesn't shout, but when it's missing, you notice. They said goodbye unhurriedly, like those who know they'll see each other soon. Ellis walked back slowly. The town felt more like his. When he got home, Clara was knitting in the same corner. You smell like paint and cheap wine. Good day then? One of the best. Then repeat it. Good days shouldn't be rare. Ellis looked at her like someone discovering a secret formula in the everyday. Don't let simple days scare you, Ellis. They're the ones you miss the most when they're gone. He went up to his room. He sat down to write. Today had no revelations, just books, paint, and bread with cheese. And yet I felt I got closer to who I want to be. The sun filtered warmly through the window. Ellis opened his eyes without alarm. So that was the end of the other day. So day 13 is the decision. He came here with a very heavy heart, not knowing anything that he wanted, missing his mom because he just buried her. And now he's finding himself very slowly. Today was the day. The decision he had avoided was now staring him in the face. The phone sat on the table, silent yet present. He turned it on, 2 unread messages. Message 1. We confirm the call with SMV Studio at 4 p.m. Last chance. Message 2. If you need air, the dock is still where we left it. Ellis stayed in bed a few moments longer. The phone shone like an artificial beacon, reminding him time couldn't be paused. He thought about what he'd leave behind if he said no. He thought about mid-morning coffees, the wide city streets, the thrill of a new project, the promise of becoming his old self again, the illusion that something big was waiting if only he dared to resume his career. But he also thought of Mara's laugh when she pushed her hair back, of the silences shared with Clara, of the house that no longer creaked. And he found no relief in either image, only the weight of choosing. Ellis went down for breakfast. Clara was already seated, a slice of bread in her hand. You've got the face of someone about to make a big move. Today I have to decide whether to go back to my other life. Are you sure it's yours? Ellis sat across from her. The coffee was stronger than usual. I don't know if I'm the same person who left. You're not, but that doesn't mean you have to stay. Do you want me to stay? I want you to be someone who chooses himself every day. The silence between them was gentle, warm. I'm scared. Welcome to the club of the living. I was scared too. When? When your grandfather proposed we leave Buenos Aires and move to this town with nothing set. And why did you do it? Because I realized fear isn't always a sign of danger. Sometimes it's a sign you're about to change. Ellis looked at her, and for a moment saw the woman she had been, not just the grandmother she was. Do you regret it? Never. The rest of the day passed in suspension. Ellis walked through town like someone trying to memorize every corner. At 3:40 p.m., he arrived at the dock. Clara was sitting with her feet dangling over the water. She wore a light gray sweater, her hair down, and a thermos in her hand. Ellis paused a few seconds before approaching. The sun filtering through the clouds painted the water in golden reflections. For a moment, he thought of everything left unsaid and everything he had learned to keep silent. He wasn't seeking answers.
You're a turkey leg. You know that, right?
You're a turkey leg.
Huh?
You're a turkey leg.
No, you are first.
He wasn't seeking answers. He just needed to be there. You're just in time. The water didn't give me any mystical signs without you. The call's in 20 minutes. Do you know what you're going to say? I'm about to find out. He sat beside her. The sea moved as if breathing. I didn't sleep last night. I kept thinking happiness would show up all at once. And it doesn't. Turns out it hides in things you don't know how to name until they're gone. And now? Now I think I don't want to lose this. Mara lowered her gaze. She nudged a pebble with her foot, like she didn't know what to do with what she'd just heard. Ellis didn't press. He offered silence, one of those silences worth more than any promise. Don't promise me anything, just be honest. I'm trying. He checked the time, 3:58. Took out his phone, took a deep breath. Thought of closing his eyes, of letting the sound of the sea decide for him. Thought of not answering, of running away again. But his fingers were already dialing, his voice was already speaking. Hello? Yes, thank you for the opportunity, but I won't accept. Are you sure? It's a big project. I'm sure. It's not what I need right now. Understood. We wish you the best. He hung up, put the phone back in his pocket. And I'm staying. The sea didn't cheer, the sky didn't open, but something shifted. Did you say it for yourself? Yes, this time, yes. Then welcome to your other life. Ellis felt like he had finally arrived. If he wasn't sure where, even if he wasn't sure where. They looked at each other. No more words were needed. They walked back in silence, shoulder to shoulder. The town was still the same, but now it felt different to him. When they got home, Clara was knitting with red yarn. Did you make the call? Yes. And I'm staying. Are you sure? No, but I'm at peace. Sometimes that's enough. Clara stood with effort and rested her hand on his shoulder. She didn't hug him, didn't say anything else, but Ellis felt the gesture like a root. He went up to his room. He opened his notebook, wrote, It's not the place that changes. It's me who learned to stay. And that is the end of day 13. Epilogue, a new beginning. The last day of winter arrived without alarm, without surprise, without questions. Weeks had passed since everything calmed down, since he chose to stay. There were no lingering doubts, no voices calling from elsewhere. Ellis woke up feeling grounded, in the right place with no need to justify it. He opened his eyes as natural light slipped through the curtains. Outside, the sky was clear, almost white. The sea sounded far off, like background noise that no longer stirred him. He walked downstairs and found the kitchen empty but warm. The routine no longer felt borrowed. Every corner had regained its shape, its rhythm. A note on the table. Went to the market, you've got toast again, Clara. He smiled, made coffee, toasted the bread, spread butter without measuring. He wasn't thinking about tomorrow. He wasn't thinking about what could have been. He was simply there. He opened his notebook and wrote without thinking too much. Today doesn't hurt. Today doesn't weigh. Today just is. Then he went out, crossed the street, turned the corner. He entered Tinta Libre like someone stepping into their own room. He was no longer a visitor or a curious passerby. He was part of that place, of its rhythm, of its story. You're early. No tea made, no drama staged. I came to sleep. Rumor has it someone gave me the key to their chaos. If that's your way of asking for a job, you're hired for a May and a half, a pastry a day. She tossed him a dry rag. He caught it effortlessly. They started tidying up together, not as a chore, as a ritual. Customers came and went. Laughter, misplaced books, questions about workshops. A little girl asked if dragons existed. He told her yes, that some even learned to read and become invisible. Dara heard from the back and shook her head with a smile, without correcting him. Ellis answered without hesitation. He no longer felt like a visitor. At noon, they closed for an hour. They ate cold empanadas sitting on the curb, as if time wasn't rushing them. You remember the first day you came back? When I didn't know if I should stay or how to talk to you? When you looked at me like you weren't sure if I was real? And now? Now you look at me like you know there's no need to rush. They touched hands without solemnity, without fear. Ellis looked at the sky, blue, clear, without cracks. They went back inside, rearranged books, laughed over little things. Clara stopped by in the afternoon, left homemade bread and it was about time you worked on something useful. On her way out, she gestured from the door as if to say, I see you, not just with her eyes. And Ellis, for the first time, returned the gesture without feeling in debt. Nothing hurt, nothing was missing. Before closing, Mara pulled a book down from the top shelf. I had this saved for you. It was a blank notebook with a dark blue linen cover. For whatever comes next. Ellis opened it and flipped through the blank pages. It was silence, but not emptiness. It was a promise. Ollie, what comes next? What we invent, what we care for, what we don't repeat. Ellis held it to his chest. In another time, words came to him from others. Now he was the one deciding what to write down. I'm scared this might end. Then let's not put it on pause. Let's just live it. There were no promises, just a shared pause. Ellis felt that, finally. He didn't have to pretend he knew where he was going. With Mara beside him, it was enough to keep walking. They closed the bookstore together, didn't say much, but didn't need to. The lights of Tinta Libre went out one by one, like eyelids finally allowed to rest. They stepped into the street with calm steps, as if the night shielded them from the world. They walked unhurriedly, side by side, arms occasionally brushing, the silences between them soft and warm. Want to come to my place? If there's tea, I'm in. There's something like tea. Works for me. They crossed the plaza, now empty, with the fountain barely murmuring. Climbed the slope toward the house, beneath a moon barely sketched by clouds. Clara was already asleep. The house welcomed them in shadows, as if it knew important words didn't need bright lights. Ellis heated water. Mara sat on the couch, legs crossed. They drank tea between brief laughs and long silences, with no need to fill them. Are you okay? Now I am. When the cup was empty, Ellis stood, offered his hand, wordlessly. Mara accepted it. They climbed the stairs without breaking the silence. In the room, the streetlight drew soft lines across the sheets. They lay down without hurry. There was no urgency, no anxiety, just closeness. Mara settled against his chest, her breathing calm. Ellis held her with a tenderness that needed no explanation. Outside the town slept. Inside there were no more shadows. Only one certainty, sometimes staying in the only path worth taking. The end. A new beginning, trophy earned. The end. Thank you for becoming part of Alice's journey. Ending. A new beginning. You have unlocked one of 3. Interesting. So that was a good ending. A lot of growth coming from the beginning to what it ended up being at the end. It was a lot of raw emotion and clarity and healing and grief. And sometimes you find peace and sometimes you don't. Sometimes it happens faster and other times it takes 10 years. Alrighty. With that, it is the end.